Hello, Internet, and I've been gone a little while from the Promised Neverland circuit, but we're back with episodes 7 through 9, a review of. And yeah, when we last left off, way back a good long while ago, um, well, things are going alright a little bit. They were starting to make some plans, um, and Crone showed up to offer, her support. Also, Don and Gilda found out the truth and everything. They don't get a lot to do in these episodes, though, so that's a thing. Anyway, before we go any further, just a reminder, if you want to see more late anime reviews next season, be sure to vote down in the straw poll down below what you want to see me review next season. That'll be closing in a good long while, so take your time. I don't really care. Anyway, jumping into the episode itself, the first thing we find out, we open right where we left off with Crone saying, "Hey, let me help y'all." We find out that Crone was also a farm child when she was young. I actually don't know if that's the official name, but that's what we're going with. But Crone provides a good bit of exposition about how to become a mom. If a girl reaches age 12, has certain test scores, and gets her mom's recommendation, she can go on the path of becoming a mom rather than being killed. This actually tells us a lot, even if it raises a bunch of other questions. For one, we now have this is our first definitive proof that there are other farms, as Crone refers to them in the plural here. We do find out later on there are 5 total. We have plenty of references to them in these 3 episodes. But the requirements to become a mom are a little weird. Like, I get the need for a certain test scores and the mom's recommendation, but is there a particular reason, from the demon's perspective, that only women can be caretakers, that only girls will be, accepted? Or is it just the author's views of women as, particularly caring creeping up? I don't know. Maybe that'll get put in more detail later on. And before anyone says, of course, they have to be women, they're called moms. They don't have to be called moms. So, I don't buy that. Anyway, so they tentatively accept Crone's proposal, but I'm glad as soon as Crone leaves and they're back in the house, they just start thinking of alternative theories as to why Crone would pretend to ally with them. Because Norman is right. Crone does not need them to escape to get Isabella removed. You know, Crone tells them that she's going to help them leave, and then once they're gone, she'll be like, look at what Isabella just did. But, Crone doesn't need that. Also, because that would look badly on Crone as well. Because, then she also would have failed to stop the kids. But if she can prove that Isabella knew the kids knew the secret and did nothing about it, then in her own mind, that would have been useful. Or that would have been, that would have been beneficial to her. Sorry, let's train of thought there. But yeah, already I was like, she's not gonna follow through on this. And I was right in the end. I have a lot to say about Crone's death later on, but it's complicated and messy, and I don't quite know if it works. Anyway, so Norman and Emma go to Crone's room to try to get any information from Crone they can. Now that they're on the same side and all, and they try to act like they don't even know where the tracking devices would be. But that quickly falls apart as Crone pretty logically runs through her proof that they're lying. So Crone definitely wins that one. Meanwhile, Ray gets a camera from Isabella. We find out that somehow the device to break the tracking devices is finally completed this episode. In episode 9, I should say. It takes a couple episodes, but we get there. And it's... So Ray makes special mention of the strobe lights being important in episode 9. I don't know why. I don't know how the camera did it. I don't know, but it happened, so whatever. Meanwhile, Crone figures out they already have what they need to break the tracking devices, and so that's her ticket to start searching for it. And I do need to say the thing that has been said by a lot of people going forward, but this is just the moment where it should be brought up if it has not been brought up yet. And much has been said about how Krone's design is just kind of a racial caricature, and that is on full frustrating display at the end of episode 7. It's just the expressions are at their most like stereotypical racist, and it's just not very good. Crone is definitely one of the weaker characters, just for that alone, and for how, as I'll talk about in a little bit later, how kind of useless she is to the overall plot. She's just kind of there. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But yeah, it's not particularly good. And I don't really know enough about how those kinds of racial caricatures made it to Japan. Maybe just like their ubiquity in like cartoons of the post World War II era, and then in American occupation they've got it through there. I don't know. This is not a speculating about history video, so I'm not gonna go too deep. It's not gonna go into that anymore. But yeah, moving on. Anyway, Crone finds something, and it's really important. All the way through episode 9, we don't know what she's found. Crone knows, Grandma knows, and Ray knows. And Isabella knows whatever's on there. She doesn't know that it's on there, but you know. But we don't know what is on the sheet of paper that Crone found. Ray refers to it later on as Isabella's greatest weakness, I think in episode 9. But we don't know what's on there. Anyway, Isabella shows up and tells Crone, we find out in episode 8, that she's been promoted to mom of Planet 4. And that's kind of where we don't quite get that far in episode 7. That's where episode 7 ends. Before we move on to episode 8, this is our first mention of a name for whoever's higher than mom in the hierarchy, and it is of course Grandma. We find out by the end of episode 8 that she is a human. Presumably she is someone who's just been a mom, so like sister evolves into mom, then evolves into grandma maybe, and she's like the head of all the moms at Grace Fieldhouse. Maybe. I don't know. We don't know enough about her. We know she can, like, command a demon to kill Crone in episode 8. But anyway. So anyway, episode 8 opens. Crone finds out that, she's been promoted to Mom of Planet 4. Supposedly, it turns out to not be as real as, Crone might have hoped. Talk about that in a few seconds. But also, Isabella gives her this lie about that, like, she's been recommending Crone to be mom for some time. But both the audience, Isabella, and Crone are all aware it's just a way for Isabella to get Crone off her back, to deal with an annoying flea, really. And Isabella, really does not give Crone the time of day at all. She is so high above everything that Crone is doing, she just doesn't really care. But yeah, anyway, Crone hates Isabella enough, especially after figuring out why Isabella recommended her to become mom, that she's willing to sabotage everything she's worked for to get back at her, to reveal the kid's plot before she knows everything about it, which is why I'm really not too fond of the whole, Crone was actually kind of nice all along thing, her death scene, kind of plays up, because I'll talk about this now, here, actually, in conjunction with that scene in general, is that Crone, up until right before she is killed, is like, hey, here's what the kids are up to, get at them, kill them, save me. It's not until she's got the flower in her gut, dying, that she's like, fuck it, destroy this world, kids. That to me does not say she's a good person. It says she, hates the world in general, because it's kind of fucked up. But she's more interested in her own self-preservation and only starts worrying about the greater good once she no longer has her own personal good. So I object to the idea that Crone is some kind of hero. She dies a villain, I'd say. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Grandma is well aware, we find out, that that kids occasionally learn the truth and doesn't really care as long as the kids still get shipped out. And we have a flashback of her with another kid on the wall. And at the time, we don't know, the grandma kind of invites her warmly back down, presumably that, the kid does come back down. We don't know why at the time. We eventually find out in episode 9, it's because they see the cliff. Yeah, that's how episode 9 ends. It's done in a few minutes. But anyway, then she summons a demon that kills Crone in a fairly long. It's like 3 minutes of her flashing back and dying. And it kind of just makes Crone an entirely superfluous character. You know, I think Crone in the end was a bad character. She provides a bit of exposition and some insight into the politics of the moms, and she's kind of our first foothold, the foot in the door of the secrets of this world. We get a little bit of info out of her. Still, of course, a lot we don't know, and a lot that Crone doesn't know. But in the end, she didn't really accomplish anything. She was there to be threatening and more than vaguely racist. And that seems about it. So Crone, in the end, just didn't really work. I'm sorry. And there's this weird attempt to make us sympathize with Crone. And as I just said, the show hasn't really earned that. Crone is not a character really worthy of our sympathy. Sure, I understand why she did what she did. Anything beats dying. But she does it with such glee when we see her at the beginning. And she's just too willing to sell children to be eaten for me to mourn her. Still, the sequence, I will say, is incredibly well done. It's well directed, well composed. Everything about it is great stylistically. It's just emotionally, it does not really carry the heft I think it wants to. Though I will say, after Crone dies and we see the kids saying, thanks for the food, that worked. That was just perfect, the perfect right amount of, creepy and funny. That was a great moment. Anyway, back to the stuff that works. And from here on out, I have zero complaints. Everything about the next episode and a half is pretty much perfect. So Isabella reveals to Ray that she's known everything. That Ray has been two-timing her. She reveals that she's killed Crone. She's about to kill Ray. She locks Ray in a room. Or she's not about to kill Ray, but, she's shoving him away for a little while. She locks him in a room so she can go catch Emma and Norman in the act of trying to escape. What's really great about this scene, though, is the moment where Ray tries to tackle Isabella, and we see, there are two tackle sound effects. And it took me a second to realize they weren't just a glitch, because Isabella does not move at all, which is great. Isabella, without any effort, just throws Ray off of her. And it's just this great reminder of how totally outmatched these kids are. And we see that again in the confrontation between Isabella, Emma, and Norman that ends the episode, which, by and large, is excellent. It's this tense, well-thought-out, phenomenal clash of their personalities. And it reminds us just how outmatched they are. Emma also tries to tackle Isabella. There's this recurring theme in these scenes of trying to tackle Isabella, and it never works. And then Isabella just breaks her leg. In a heartbeat. The camera turns back to Norman for a split second. And then we hear the crack, and it's like, oh shit! Holy fuck! And then just to pour salt in the wound, right after Ray, Dawn, and Gilda get there, we find out Norman is getting shipped tomorrow. Episode ends. I'm so glad I waited the week for that, so I can watch it all together. Because then we jump right into episode 9. We find out Norman's getting shipped out the next day. And the first highlight, there's actually not that much I want to talk about in this episode, which is really weird, because it was the best episode of these 3. Maybe the best episode of the show so far, though. It's just an incredible episode. But the first thing I want to talk about is the Norman at the sink scene. It's phenomenal. Everything is so good in this episode. We see him, keep his composure in front of Emma, but you can tell he's about to crack. To, his walk down the hallway is so well animated, for one thing. And then we finally see his emotions burst, like the sink. Damn, this show kills it. Norman is just spectacular in this episode. And we see later on, Norman is, always putting on a brave face, even though he knows he's about to be shipped off to be murdered by these fucking demons. And he's just, putting on a brave face, and Emma and Ray are no, you should be, worried about this. No, it's fine, don't worry about me. Then we get to the trio plotting about finding a way to, save Norman. They desperately try to find a way to save him, which is a great sequence. Norman, shuts them down in order to, not risk their lives over his. The character writing in the show is so good. God, the show is killing it this week. And of course, Emma's solution, just like break Ray's arm, is both clever and hilarious. So no problem there. Then the one thing that's just kind of weird. We find out finally how Ray learned the truth about the house. And it's that he somehow has memories from his birth. We don't know how. We don't know why. We don't know what. That's just a thing, and we're like, okay, I guess that's a thing now, to reveal 3/4 of the way through the season. But yeah, he remembered it from his birth and from his time as a fetus. But anyway, so there's this shot in episode 8 where we see the pen that Crone, we learn, had picked up from the headquarters, and this package, and presumably the note she got from Ray in retrospect. But we see it in a drawer, and her like dying flashbacks. And I figured that was her when she first arrived. We know she had the pen. I didn't know what the crate was, and we didn't see the letter. But it's not. She put it in Norman's desk, which means Norman now knows knows something else, something that Ray knows. And I figured that's going to be how they survive, because I don't know about Norman now, how he's going to make it out of here alive. But Crone did one last heroic act, which muddies her character a fair bit, because, now in the timeline, that means that she did that, and then she ratted out the kids, which is kind of weird. I don't quite know why she'd do that, and she's dead, so I can't ask her. I don't know, Crone just continues to be a mess. But anyway, Norman goes and scales the wall, and they set the escape plan of short-circuiting the tracking device, and then getting rid of, then having Norman just, like, hide in the woods for a couple months is the current plan. And what was I about to think? So he scales the wall and comes back. And we don't know why he comes back at first. But there's this great shot as he walks to Isabella, and he stops when he's fully enclosed in Isabella's shadow. And that's such a great shot. He is both literally and figuratively under her shadow now. His faith has been broken, like we saw the child in Grandma's flashback. And we learn why. That beyond the wall is just a cliff. And when we first found that out, before I get to my summary review section, I was wondering, like, why didn't he hide anyway and then think of a plan? But I did finally figure out the reason why, and it's because Crone knows he can't escape, and so if he escapes, or she'd never think he'd escape. She'd think that he's hiding somewhere in the woods. And then because the tracking device would not be working anymore, she'd know the tracking devices weren't work, or they had a way to break them. So Norman is being self-sacrificial to the last, and I don't know how or if he's gonna get out of this one. But yeah, that ends episode 9. These episodes are a crazy time. A part of me really wishes I'd not gotten so far behind this past month, so I could talk about each of these episodes individually. But that didn't happen, so here we are. I admit the Crone stuff was largely not as good as the rest of the show, and Crone, just racially, is a blight on this show that will not soon be forgotten. Still, there was some good stuff that came out of Crone, and even that last scene of her death was just incredibly composed, even if it was not as emotionally compelling as they may have wanted. But the rest of it was all great, with episode 9, maybe, as I said, being the best episode of this show yet. I can't wait to see what happens next. But next time, fuck man, we're fucked. I'm gonna leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the episodes and the video. If you did, feel free to drop me a like, or subscribe, or fill out my straw poll down below, or, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!